Welcome back to the Mark Faris Experience. I'm your host, Mark Faris. Today we are speaking with Richard Turner. Richard is the founder of Modern PURAIR Indoor Air Quality Experts. They're located in Barrie, Ontario, so just north of Toronto. And they have 5 staff and they're growing very quickly. They won the fastest growing franchise of the year in 2024, growing to over $1 million in revenue. He's married, he's got 2 kids, and a great father, and definitely excited to be hearing a little bit more. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark. I'm looking forward to chatting with you a little bit more.
Right on. So share a little bit about your background and what got you into the business.
Yeah, I started out in hospitality, actually working at a Woodbine racetrack, doing just out of college kind of thing, trying to find my way. And then naturally, kind of not naturally, I just progressed into a sales role and selling industrial supplies and things like that, and eventually started selling these hydraulic lift gates. And then COVID happened, and you know, things changed a lot during that time. And so I remember at the time I was selling through distribution from Ontario to BC. And so you couldn't really get on a plane, you couldn't do things. And I remember looking at my wife and I just looked at her, I'm like, so is this what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life? Like selling these lift gates? And which I love doing. And it's funny because my wife sells lift gates now for one of my competitors, but it's funny how it kind of comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
But I just wanted more, and so I started. Had a lot of time on my hands during COVID, so I started renovating my houses and doing a lot of the stuff myself, watching YouTube videos, and through that whole process, I just really learned that I've got the energy to do it, and the knowledge or the information is out there for really anything now because of the internet, and so I can do whatever I want with my life, and so I went down a rabbit hole of I remember I got an ad that came across for this duct cleaning business, and I went to my wife at the time, and I went to my wife and I said, hey, what do you think about this duct cleaning? She's like, get out of here, are you kidding me? And so I went back down to the basement, started renovating it, continued renovating it, like I was doing all the drywall, the electrical, all this good stuff, right? And got it certified, of course. And then we sold that house, and so I had 3 months on my hands, and without telling her, I just kind of went back down the rabbit hole, started researching it. And my mom, like, I come from a really healthy background. My mom's a chiropractor, so we've grown up with just a healthy life, like eating good food, clean water, and so the breathing clean air and just like the duct cleaning business in general just made so much sense to me, and I felt like it was a really underserved market. A lot of people don't think about it because it's out of sight, out of mind. And I don't know. My son was a year old. Like having kids isn't hard enough, but just decided to go after it, and so glad I did.
So there's quite a bit there I want to unpack, but I want to go back to, you said you got out of college. What did you take in college? We're curious what that
Oh yeah,
was.
no, I took tourism management at Georgian here, so that's what brought me into the Barrie community. I was a terrible high school student, and so I just like scraped by. And I think if you a lot of the stuff that I read about entrepreneurship is just C students, are the
Yeah.
best entrepreneurs in a lot of cases, right?
Well, the reason I asked that, Richard, is because it's so interesting, because I went to Georgian College as well, and I took tool and die making. And so back in high school, I didn't know what I was going to do. I kept playing hockey, and then, while I was going, playing juniors and whatnot, I kept going to school, and then I finished grade 12 when I was 17, late birthday, December, and then I took a 2-year tool and die making program, which was before everything went over to China. And I mean, it could still be a great career, just I didn't love it either. But I took the 2-year program and I never really got into it after I did hockey and then real estate after that. But it's interesting that a lot of students now, they're graduating or they're about to graduate. I mean, I have a 17-year-old now, and he's like, he's wondering what he's going to do. But I think there's a growing awareness that going to college, it can be a really great thing, but it's not a necessary thing for success. And this is a great example for you. I mean, you took tourism and management, and you're doing something completely different. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree. My kids are a lot younger; they're 3 and 5. But I really believe the same thing. I'm so grateful for every piece of my journey because it brought me to where I am today. So while college
Yeah.
didn't really provide me with like the essentials that I needed for like in terms of education and learning to do this business, um, it got me out of my parents' house and I was living alone. So you had to figure, I remember going home the first time and I said to my dad, "Can you believe how expensive cheese is?" And I was the kid that would leave the brick of cheese out overnight on the on the
Yeah.
cutting board, right? He would, so
Yeah.
it's just that, but I agree with you. Yeah. Like the education piece for me, it was a lot of fun and things like that. But I agree. You don't need to do college
Yeah.
to be successful in life.
Yeah, and so it's interesting now because I think my oldest, I think he is going to be going. He'll take some sort of business, is what he's talking about now. But it's just, I think it's like it's a good discussion point because I think that the biggest thing I think is to you got to go towards something, and so whether it's school or going towards a career. I think either way you can get there. You can be successful. The key is to just start moving. And like you had said, like it got you out of the house, it got you realizing that things are expensive. And it was the same for me when I got out on my own. It was like I'm going shopping and I'm cooking. I'm like, oh, I got to do all the dishes. It's like you can't just leave it there. It's going to be there when you get back tomorrow. But it taught you, yeah, their life lessons as well, right? But the key is you're moving towards something, which I think was great. And then then you got into a sales role and renovating houses. Now, is this something the sales were you always naturally good at sales, or was that something that you had to learn?
No, well, so you're gonna learn a lot about me here, but I didn't. So had a college education, which is what it is, but it's not like it's a university degree. So it's difficult to find a high paying job when you come out of high school. I think it's difficult, and I don't know what it is like now. I'm sure it's the same way. So I was in hospitality and working, evenings and weekends at the racetrack, and wasn't making a whole lot of money. And one of my buddies just had a history degree. He got a 3 year degree at a university, and he was selling these industrial supplies. And I said, "Why are you doing? Why are you why are you in sales?" And he just said, "Well, with the education I have, I'll be able to make the most amount of money doing sales." And like this light bulb went off in my head,
Yeah,
and it makes sense, right? And
yeah,
being in sales in a lot of cases is like owning your own business. You've got to manage all your customers and do all your things, and you really, just like in life, you get what you put into it, right? So if you want to work a little bit harder and make more calls and operate with a certain level of intensity, you'll probably do quite well. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try this out. And then I just started doing it, and it's I think like anything in life, volume. I just did, say at my first job, we had to do 40 calls a day. I did 60. And I kind of use that philosophy with a lot of the things I do in my life. Just, we talked a little bit about Dan Martell before, but I watch a lot of like Ed Milet, and it's like the one more, right?
yeah.
Do a little bit more. So that's how I kind of live my life.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think for anybody that wants to become an entrepreneur, I think that getting into sales as a starting step and going to work for a company is a wonderful first step. Because if you know sales, I mean, there's sales and then there's marketing and then there's like the customer service or operational side of it, the product that you're offering or the service delivery side of it, right? But sales, if you don't know how to sell or to speak with people, that's going to be a real problem for any sort of entrepreneur. Like you have to get out and have the ability to communicate effectively enthusiasm of what it is that you're selling. And if you don't believe in it and you can't properly sell it, that's going to be very much a challenge. So I think, it was the same with me when I started selling real estate back in 2007. I'm more of a natural in word. So we'll just say that I'm not a natural talker. My sister talked for me until I was like 5 years old, my older sister. And so the point there is that I was the same with me. I just knocked on thousands of doors and had made thousands of cold calls. And eventually, I picked it up slowly, but I picked it up. But I think getting the reps in is a powerful concept. And you get better the more you do. And then the better you get, the more fun you have, you're closing more, you're making more money, and but you got to get through that early hard of sucking at the beginning. You got to get your reps in, like you had said.
Absolutely. I agree. And, every time you do another rep, you're also refining your craft. You're getting a little bit better. You're getting a little bit more efficient. And I don't even really look at myself as like selling, because
Yeah.
you're buying into me. And so in a lot of cases, it's just like, you identify that there's a problem, and then I'm the guy who's good. And you know that after talking to me that I'm going to be the guy to get it done. Just like for you, if you're selling a house, like I'm going to be able to sell your house, and I'm going to get you, you know, the value that you deserve, and I'll be able to find you another one and things like that. Right. So they're not really, and that's what's kind of difficult with me in the franchise is our franchise is quite small and it's busy. It's big out in BC, but there's only 3 franchise partners here in Ontario. And so they're not signing up to do business with Modern Pure Air. They have the great process. They taught me how to do this stuff. We have the best equipment, all this kind of stuff. But they're signing up to do business with Richard Turner, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. 100%. So there's I'm not sure, David Goggins. So Can't Hurt Me, I believe he wrote his book. And so he talks about that. He's a guy that basically I think he has a pull-up record for the number of pull-ups within a 24-hour time frame. Like, the guy's hardcore. And he said that when you think you're mentally finished, as in when most people give up, he's like, you're only 40% utilizing your what you have left. So you have 60% left in the tank, is his whole thesis and his idea. So for you, going from 40 calls that most people would do, I'm sure there was other people when you were doing sales doing less than 40, right? And they're having, the process improvement plans and all whatnot, but you're shooting for 60. So what do you think it is that you had to be able to do 60 calls when everybody else is barely doing 40? Like, what is it that drove you to make that happen?
well, I think it's just the way that I am in a lot of ways, but I think it's also the C student thing. I think it's a lot of different things where, I need to make up for lost time. I don't want to say make up for lost time, but I don't know. It's just volume. You know what I mean? And every
Yeah.
time I do it, I get a little bit better. And then you start having some success on the calls. And I like doing what I do now. Like, I love doing this. Like, so it's not
Mm.
like I'm working. I just, if I can fit more calls in and I can connect with more people, I don't know, it brings me joy, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It was easy to do, and I was learning. I think that's a big thing for me is every time you're doing another call too, I'm learning and I'm getting a little bit better, and so that's kind of a big motivator for me.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that idea about having a chip on your shoulder. And it's I think it so we have we have the 2 companies. We have the real estate investment firm, and then we have the brokerage, real estate brokerage team that we help people buy and sell homes. And on the brokerage side, Fair's team, we have PhDs, MBAs applying for frontline jobs. And then we have others that just came out of high school. And we've had both successful people on both sides. So we've had really smart, educated, and they've come out. And then we've had people that, just barely made it through high school. But what was interesting is that in general, I found that the ones that just came right out of high school, there was a chip on their shoulder in regards to, like, there was this hunger to learn, and they
Hmm.
were they were like extremely curious, and they were okay starting on the bottom and doing like the we'll just say the non-sexy reps, right? Learning the scripts, doing like just asking the question, getting the answer, and doing and spending. And what I found was there was less time thinking about what they were going to do. There's less time thinking about it and more time doing it, which allowed them to actually get further ahead faster. There's a really good Art Williams did this whole talk about just do it. If you Google Art Williams just do it on YouTube, it's like he has a 5-minute video, which I watched the 5-minute, and then there's like a 20-minute one.
Yeah.
And I just love it because he talks about this whole idea about getting around to do things and taking massive action. And so I love that idea about having, you know, that chip on your shoulder. It's like, I'm going to prove everybody wrong, that, you know, I'm going to be successful in spite of this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you on that. And I think the biggest thing, like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and even if you are, it doesn't matter. You still have to work hard.
Yeah.
And I got this
Yes.
funny story. I have a twin brother, and so that kind of could be a motivator for me as well. Like, you're always at competition, and
Yeah.
you know, you've got someone with the same DNA competing for milk when you're a baby. You know, like competing for attention,
Yeah.
all these kinds of things. So that could be a motivator for me as well. But at a time when I first started that first sales job that we had, there was myself, a buddy of mine from high school, and my twin brother had the same job. And this guy from high school said, we were out one night having fun, and he's like, I feel like, and he's like, labeling us all, right? He's like, I feel like I'm the strategic one, your brother's the smart one, and you just work hard. And at the time, I was so miffed. I was just like, what? So
Yeah.
I'm a dumb bag of rocks and I just work hard?
Yeah.
And it was and so now that I'm doing this and I work for myself and all this it was the greatest compliment I could have ever gotten,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
No, that's
anybody
good.
can, everybody's smart in their own way. Everyone can be strategic, but it takes a special kind of person to really work hard and make something.
Mm,
Right?
yeah. That's really powerful, and that you see it as a compliment, and that's exactly what it is, because that's what's required in order to be successful getting a business off the ground. You need to put that early muscle in. Uh, how important do you think it is? Do you think grit and the ability to keep going in spite of challenge? Like, how important is that? And did that play into your beginning story with when you launched this business?
Oh yeah. Well, I think too, if I put a lot of pressure on myself, so that's what kind of continues to drive me. And so yeah, grit. So many people, I'm sure, give up way too early. And that's the whole,
Mm,
like, one more, instead of I'll quit
yeah.
tomorrow. I'll quit tomorrow. I'll quit tomorrow. But yeah, when I first started this, I remember laying in my bed with my wife. I'm like, what did I do? Like, because you start and you think that, especially when you're in a franchise business, like, you're like, okay, well, you open up a McDonald's and people just like roll in, and that
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I thought it would be easier than it would. And I think that every entrepreneur probably thinks that. And if I knew how hard it would be, I don't know that I would have necessarily done it. But then you get to this point where it's like, okay, well, I'm here now. What, like,
Mm,
either it's like the fight or flight thing, so there's really hard days, as but that just makes the good days so much sweeter.
mm.
So I think just
Yeah.
the perseverance is a big thing, and just making it through, because there are
Yeah.
good days ahead.
Yeah, that's a great story of like, what did I do, honey? We're in this now. It's like, I got to keep going now. I got to go, got to go. We got to, we burned the ships sort of approach. I got to make it good now. And I think that's like very encouraging for entrepreneurs to hear that, because we see on Instagram and Facebook, all the success stories and overnight success, and the reality is businesses can be hard, it can be brutal, it can be it could be ugly. When you sometimes you're dealing with a client and they're yelling at you, and you got to handle it, and sometimes it's out of your control, and it's like you got to keep on loving them. And then others, you got a team member that basically pick up and they go to the competition, they're telling them all exactly everything that you've taught them, type thing. And that's ugly. It can be ugly, right? As you feel betrayed. And these emotions are not things that they tell you when you get your business license, right? It's like nobody tells you that, and you don't see that on social media. The hard, right? You see
Yeah.
kind of the overnight success, and like the motivational, like, you could gritty, you could do it. But going through the hard can sometimes be, it can be months, it can be years going through that struggle before you like make it. But I think that knowing that that story that you shared, it's like, what did we do? It's like that early struggle. I think it's encouraging for listeners.
For sure. It was, and there was a lot of pressure at the time too, because we had a 6 month old and my wife was pregnant with our second. So
Yeah.
it really was, and it was never as bad as I made it seem to be, but you feel like, something bad happens and you feel like you'll never have a good day again, or like your van breaks down, or you get in an accident or something like that. And you think that, it's your life is coming to an end, but then, just right around the corner, something good is going to happen, and does happen. You know what I mean? So if you, I think the greatest thing too is if you don't play the game, you can't win. And
Mm,
so if
that's good.
and I think it's just like
Yeah.
you have to try if you want. And I don't think this is for everybody, but
Yeah.
I will say, like, I have learned so much about myself, and just because I'm dealing with marketing, I'm dealing with the sales, I'm dealing with like leadership and like tech, like managing technicians and growing the business, and like suppliers and all this kind of stuff. And so personal growth is like a huge thing, and I kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier with like learning, and it's been like this whole journey for me.
Mm.
um, and so what's really cool is the things that bothered me 3 years ago when I first started, they don't bother me anymore. But I have other bigger things bothering me, but I'm getting through that, and they're not going to bother me anymore. So I've evolved so much in 3 years just because of the business ownership thing, because it's so hard, and hard things are usually worth doing.
Oh man, I love that. That's so great that business and being an entrepreneur, it's like you're becoming the best version of yourself. And so, like, playing the game, I love that concept of, you can't win unless you play the game. You're playing the game, but it's interesting thought to think, maybe it's not so much about, the money is all like, gravy and whatnot, but what if you did business to be the best version of yourself? That it's gonna grind you and polish you and be to be able to work your character to a point that you get to the end of your career, instead of, I did just enough to survive, but I become the best version of myself in character, in grittiness, relationships, the ability to take on massive amount of stress, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's like a really, you know, Jim Rohn talked about that a lot, about it's about who you're becoming.
Yeah.
But like seeing that and getting into the business and realizing that going through business is how you build your character up. And you got to keep playing the game, but the ultimate is who you're becoming through playing that game, which is cool. Just hearing you say that, it kind of brought it full circle for me.
For sure. And when I say winning, like, I think that means so many different things. Like, you can't win if you don't play the game, but I think that means so many different things to people. So, like, to your point, winning is becoming the best version of yourself. Winning is could be considered making a lot of money. It means different things to different people. For me, winning is like, I want to be able to pass this on to my kids. I think that is
Mm,
like the coolest thing, because I think
yeah.
most people, like my dad, with my mom is an entrepreneur, but she's a chiropractor, and my dad was a teacher, and so we, I don't know, but my mom's more of like a, in that professional like corporation, like an accountant, and you know what I mean, like, so she went to school to be a chiropractor, and she ran her own practice and things like that. But I never really felt, I don't know, I just never really, I don't have any friends that were entrepreneurs or anything like that. So it wasn't really in my world. So it's just, most people just think, okay, I'm gonna get out of college or university and I'm just gonna go get a job. But there's this like whole other world out there where, when we were growing up, my dad's strategy with us was, I'm going to get you a job in a factory. They're high paying jobs for a young kid, and this is, we were working with people. The first job that we got, minimum wage was 6.85. I'm dating myself, but minimum wage was 6.85, and we got this job working in this factory, slugging boxes for 12.50 an hour, and it was hard. And we were working there with guys that had families and things like that. And my dad basically wanted to show us, like, hey, if you don't play your cards right and you mess around in school, it's like, you might, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you could end up
Yeah.
working here like some of these guys. But if you want more,
Yeah.
you have to put more in. And whereas now with what I'm going through, it's like I want my kids to work in retail. I want them to have a lawn cutting business, like going to the neighbors. And I feel like
Right.
you get so many skills from those different things, and just trying. We talk a lot about it actually with sports and our kids, and your kids are older, but there's the Tiger Woods approach, right? Which is all he ever did was play golf. And then there's the Roger Federer approach where he played all these different sports. And then when he was, I forget how old he was, like 14, he was a teenager or something. He's like, I want to play tennis. And there's no right or
Mm.
wrong answer, but they're both arguably the best at their craft, right?
Mm.
And so I like the Roger
Yeah.
Federer approach.
Yeah. No, I like that too, for sure. So you were and are the fastest growing franchise with your organization. And so I'm curious, what did you do to have such a strong start? What were kind of the specific activities that you were doing that's maybe different than all the other franchise owners?
Well, I had that burn behind me with these kids, right? And the whole, and so that was it. I mean, I just outwork everybody. I'm not
What does
smarter.
that
Yeah.
What does that look like though, like on a day to day? So
Oh,
it's clear you had a strong drive. So you woke up, you had this fire in your ass type thing. Right?
for
It's like,
sure, for sure.
I gotta put food on the table. I got a baby coming here. And I went through the exact, so I can understand the fire there. So you had the fire and then you had a chip on your shoulder as well. And so I think the entrepreneurs, I think what might be going on their head is, okay, I I'm motivated too. I want to be successful, but a lot of them just don't know. It's like, okay, what do I do next? Right. So I'm curious, what did what did you do to generate business and to have people reach out to you and say, hey, yeah, I want to hire you to clean my ducts and come in. I want to give you business. How'd you find them?
Great question. And I think, just like success, work is defined in so many different ways. And so it's like, what intensity do you have when you are working, right? Like, what is your output like, and how are you doing things? So I think I have a good head start. Not everyone that joins a franchise necessarily has sales experience, because they're buying into a system and things like that, and it should be a little bit easier in theory.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started out with one truck, one van, and I was in the van. And I thought it was really important. We're advised in a bunch of different ways, but if you want to be a business owner, technically you buy into the franchise, you get a van, and you can start with a technician. And I did that, but I didn't have enough business coming in, and the guy just kind of left. It was almost like serendipitous. And so I was in the van, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I got to really learn the business, like really learn it. Like I was doing it. I was in these houses talking to customers, getting the objections, and really understanding the why, as like, because indoor air quality means so many different things to people. So one of the first questions we ask you when we come into your house is, why are we here? Like, are you congested? Is it just time? Like your house is super dusty? Like, what is the reason that we're here? And you ask someone that question, and you get, even though we're doing the same thing in 100 different houses, you get 100 different answers for the most part.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own little reason. And then in some houses too, the and what I love about this is we'll do, so you got a husband and a wife. Generally, the women are more conscious about cleanliness and air quality, and generally like healthier things. Like, guys are just like me, is like, oh, whatever, I'll do it myself. I'll stick a vacuum down there, and like kind of the whole like DIY mentality, which I am that way, like I want to try it, I want to do it, right? And so some of our customers are having a full on domestic, like the wife wants us there, and the husband's like, we don't need this, and all this kind of stuff. But you get to understand like the why. And so we
Mhm.
do a huge portion of our business is commercial work as well. So we do a lot of residential, like homes and things like that. We do multi-residential, so condos, apartment buildings and things. And then we do a lot of like larger, like industrial facilities. We do a lot of municipal stuff, office spaces and things. And so they all have different reasons, but it's all pretty much the same. like air quality. And so the objections and the questions that we get in a residential thing, same thing. So anyway, to kind of speed it up for you, I would go and be in the van doing the work, but like I said, I wasn't that busy. And so I had a list of basically customers that I thought would benefit from our services. And so even while I was driving from, say, we do 2 bookings a day. We generally can clean 2 hours. It takes us about 3-4 hours for a residential house. So it's a really thorough process. And so first bookings at 8 o'clock, and maybe I finish it at 12, and I've got a half an hour or an hour drive to the next house. Or maybe I don't have a booking after that. In between those 2 calls, as I'm driving there, I'm calling the commercial customers. And because you can't, especially if you live in Canada and things like that, everybody gets the cold calls for the duct cleaning. It's very scammy, and there's a lot of scams out there. So it's a tough business to be in. So we don't do any of that. So the outreach that I would do is all for commercial, right? So we work with a lot of property managers who are managing condos, and like I said, the municipal stuff and whatnot. So I would be in between calls. I'm calling them, and then I'd get home at night and I placed a call, I get their email, I follow up and send them some information via email. And it was just like that, rinse and repeat for months and months. And after 3 months, I had gotten so busy because I put all that in, and I'm an energy guy. Like, you put that energy out there, and the volume, maybe 1 in 100 comes back. So do 10,000, and you'll, right? And so I got
Oh
so busy.
man.
So I was actually able to hire a technician. And then full time, I could go at the business development, which is the seat that I own still today.
The listeners, I suggest stopping, rewinding, listening to that, and then doing it again and again and again, because that is, I think, the biggest missing piece that I've seen with entrepreneurs that try it out and then they fail, is because they did not spend the time doing the business development, reaching out and actually having conversations with potential customers, and basically being able to say, hey, like, basically, hey, will you hire me? And you could say it any which way you want. Like, for on the real estate side, it's always, hey, let's sit down, have a cup of coffee, and let's see if we can help you and when you're, whether you're looking to buy or sell. And so there's a different kind of offering you do, but it's always getting face to face. That's the offer. And so the more conversations you have, the more you're going to be able to be the convenient option for somebody and say, yeah. Or eventually they'll see your signs around, or, you're advertising, and, they'll start calling you. But you got to start somewhere. And it starts with having those conversations. And so what you did was just so genius, is like, you're learning the business, but in between jobs, you're making phone calls. You go back and you're doing follow up as well. And I just think that it not only is that like powerful for getting the business off the ground, because as an entrepreneur, you have a time limit before you run out of cash. And so this is a big thing that's not talked about a lot. It's like, you have oxygen, so much oxygen left in the tank. That means that if you don't have this big nest egg or Uncle Joe that's going to come in and save you, you have a certain amount of time that you have to be successful. And the best way to get more oxygen or more cash in the business is to get out and have more conversations and generate more potential customers. And there's nothing above that when it comes down to starting the business. And Chet Holmes actually gives a number. He wrote this book, The Ultimate Sales Machine, and he said that 80% of your time should be lead generating when you start a business. And he says, like, that's an ongoing thing, is in the business development. So I just love that story. And like, of course, look at setting records and what you're doing. But I also like, there's another part, and then I'm going to pass it off to you, because there's so much gold in what you said. That energy and the enthusiasm that you would have taken into those calls would have been set you apart from everybody else. And it would have been infectious. Cleaning ducts, that can easily not be a sexy thing. But when you're bringing that passion, it's like, holy geez, who's this Richard guy? It's like, I want to get some of that. Yeah, come on over, clean my ducts, right? So
I,
I just want to pass that back to you, because I just thought that was some real gems that you dropped there.
Thanks. Yeah. It's funny. It is a very unsexy business. but it's one of it's a has to be. Like, you have to get your you don't have to. And we have customers that say this, right? And this is an object, like, again, you've got to go through it, and it's these people. But I've had people say to me, like, you don't need to have your ducts cleaned. And I'm like, you're right. You don't need to drink filtered water. Like, you can drink water out of that puddle. Like, you don't need to eat healthy. You can eat McDonald's every day. Like, we saw the supersize me thing. You're not going to live very long, though. And so this is just a thing that, like, it's just something that you can do that is going to make you feel better. You're in your house, especially during COVID, put really air quality on the map, because people spend more time indoors now than they ever have. And
Right.
so,
Right.
yeah, kind of going through a lot of that is what conditioned me to be able to. I started small too. Like, I started with these small systems, and this is a good way, because you have to. And I think in entrepreneurship, you never know what's going to happen. And I think the people that really do well, they find a way, and there always is a
Mm.
way. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get there. The road isn't like straight, like you're doing all these like turns and like, okay, I'm going to go over here. But I remember one of these first commercial jobs that I did, like, we basically have a big HEPA vacuum, right? Like, it's monstrous, right? And so we can clean all different kinds of things. So the customer, I'm like, oh, we're gonna, we clean the interior of your ductwork and remove all the dust and particulate and the allergens and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, well, can you, like, in commercial facilities, you'll see this in gyms and places that have exposed ductwork. Some schools have this. Well, dust will accumulate on the top of the ductwork. So the
Right.
guy's
Yeah.
like, so I'm having this great conversation with this guy, and he's like, well, can you clean the top of it? And I was like, sure. Like, and so I'm the type of guy who's like, let's just go for it. Like, yeah, I can do that. And you set the expectation with the customer, and so we get up on a boom lift, and so I'm up there just figuring this whole thing out, and we did a great job. And then I'm like, wow, okay, so there's another tool in my toolbox, right? There's another service that we can offer, right? And so I think you just throughout the whole thing is, if you put the work in, you naturally evolve, right?
You said something there that really stuck with me. You said, there always is a way. There always is a way. Ah, man. There's a couple conversations that I want to reflect on here with that. I had it was a really smart business guy. I was having coffee with him, and he was super successful. He's retired now, and he's like, one of his mentors, one of the best pieces of advice that he gave him, he said, there's not right or wrong, or two answers. As most people think about that, should I, should I do it or shouldn't I do it? It's like, he said, they're different answers. And so he said, generally there's a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th way you can do it. And so when he did that, when it changed his perspective on problems, it wasn't just like there's this option or this. It's like, what else are we not thinking of? And generally, there's like all these other different answers that comes with it. So you instead of seeing it like kind of 2D, you start to see 3D and 4D, and kind of you can see it. And that's where you have these geniuses. They see things completely different. Um, so I really like that. I'm putting that in my pocket there. There always is a way.
Mhm.
Um, really good. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say something too. I also feel that, entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey, because even sometimes my wife doesn't understand kind of she's just like, you're like this. She's like, you're like a roller coaster. Like, one day you're up, one day you're down. And it really, for me anyway, is a team sport. And while I'm doing this business by myself in a lot of ways, my wife is looking after the kids and looking after the house, and she works a full-time job too. Like, she has a ridiculously
Yeah.
successful career as well. And so, but she keeps me grounded, and I think that that's so important, to have somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of and just be there to support you, because it is a rocky road. And so, I don't know, that's been a big thing of my, like, success, and just kind of like being level headed at the end of the day. Like, everything's going to be okay. You've got this great partner, and I'm really fortunate to have someone in my life that makes me emotional. But it I own the business. I do it every day, and I get kind of like the I don't, if glory's not the right word, but I get the kind of I'm in it, but she's
Yeah.
right there with me, and I couldn't do it without her, without a partner like that.
It's massive having that support, and it can be lonely 100%. Like you had said, you get beat up and you go home, and for me, it was like Joanna's picked me up after so many like encouraging and whatnot. So I know for you, Jordan, there, um, you have that. My follow up question to that is, how do you continue to build a strong marriage while being an entrepreneur? How do you balance both of them? Is there anything that you do that helps you uh, do that to be able to keep the relationship strong?
That's an interesting question. And I think for us anyway, is like we're both continuously growing through the process and learning and getting better. And I think for us, like I just think learning and becoming the best version of yourself, like you had mentioned before, is a big thing. And then um, when you're in the trenches and doing something really hard with someone, and this makes me emotional because it's so hard, but when you're doing that with someone and you come out on the other side, like it is like relationship defining stuff,
Yeah.
and when you're in entrepreneurship, it like it happens all the time. Like you never, like there's bad stuff happening, good stuff happening, and getting through it together, like it just solidifies everything. So I think that's like it's just like being on the journey together, and then like the openness and things like that. And you know, a lot of people, and even us at the very start, is people think of things like 50-50, and life isn't 50-50. So I might not look after the kids 50% of the time, but
Yeah.
because I'm out doing something else or whatever it is. Common goals is a big one too, but we're all working.
Right.
That's it right there. Is we have this common goal and we're both working
Mhm.
towards that goal, and having fun at the same time.
Yeah. Love that. And that's a powerful concept, having that common goal, like you're on the same team. And I think that, there's a lot of, it's easy to get into the relationship where it's like you start to kind of measure, and there's some days that it's not going to be even. And I like the concept. I heard this once about, yeah, it's not 50-50, it's like 100-100. It's like
Hmm.
you take 100, I take 100, and then nobody's measuring. um and when you go through the hard, I mean, you see this in military a lot. You see, like, guys that go over and fight. um I say guys, like guys and girls, right? Like the bottom line is they're going over and they fight with others, and they're in the trenches and they think they might die, but they're protecting each other. They come back, and there's just like this bond that is at a whole other level with who they fought with. And so that common mission, as in same with military, it's like you're fighting the enemy. Well, in this case here, you're fighting all the challenges that come up in the world. But if you can stay united and have that common goal, which I love, that it's like we're going there together. And I
Hmm.
think remembering that through the ugly of the business, so to speak, right? You're short on cash, or you got a customer yelling at you that day, or you had 5 deals all fall apart, and you had an employee leave and the truck broke down. It's like it can be, you blow a fuse one day, and it's like you. One of the things that helped me and Joanna through the years is when we were first married, Richard. It took me like sometimes like a month when I was off to apologize, and then I got to 2 weeks, and then it got to a week, and then it got to a few days, and then like a few hours, and then now I'm like, crap. It's like I was off on that. It's like, sorry, Joanna. I hope you can forgive me on that. I was off on that, and
Yeah.
it's like I'm pretty good at it now because I've learned my lesson. Eventually, I'm going to have to apologize. You might as well own up to it now. But that's been like really good for that, because we're not building up these big walls, and we kind of break the barrier as fast as possible. So That's been helpful for me, and definitely going through the hard. I know with Joanna and myself as well. It's like there's a whole other level of deepness to the relationship, which can, is an amazing part of it.
That's a good philosophy for business too. Is, fail fast, right? So you make a mistake, it's just like, I'm sorry, let's move on. And I find that that happens. If there's an issue or something's bad happening in your business, deal with it right away. I'm getting so good at that. And a lot of people, something bad happens, and this is my natural tendency actually, is when I'm stressed out, I tend to delay and procrastinate whatever it is. And I think a lot of people, like, this is a common thing for a lot of people, is they just, I don't want to deal with it. I'll deal with it tomorrow, kind of thing. And so now it's just like, I deal with that stuff right away. I have a customer issue. If there's a customer complaint, a lot of the time, and this is probably the same in your business as well, is it's a misunderstanding. It's not that, we did a crappy job. It's like maybe there was a different expectation or something like that. Like we had a customer today, actually, one of my technicians was telling me, they just said, they were like, oh, I thought there'd be a lot more that came out. And, we were like, we live in a 1,300 square foot house. So, if it was a bigger house and the house was dirty, like it had a lot of like cat hair and buildup in there. But she just had this expectation, like there was just going to be like mountains of dust, and there was a lot. Like there was like 5 or 10 pounds of dust, and like we use a portable vacuum, so we show you exactly what comes out of your house at the end of the cleaning,
Oh,
right?
cool.
All of like
Yeah.
so like the cat hair, and so like there was a lot in there. But we just kind of explained it to her. We showed her the HEPA filter underneath and all the fine stuff that was on top of it. But it's just funny how those things happen. So now it's like, if there's an issue, I just get right in front of it. I deal with it immediately. And then, good or bad result, you can move on from there. But
Yeah.
I hate having something hanging over my head.
Yeah. No, that speaks volumes of you as an owner, is that you address it and you don't hide from it. And I think that's like the most powerful thing we found, actually, with any sort of challenging situation, is that if you handle it right and you go the extra mile. So there's something we teach our team members, and so this is a powerful kind of 5-step process we follow. Is that we first step is listen with an open mind. So it's like listen with an open mind. So God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so it's like listen twice as much, listen with an open mind. And then it's repeat the challenge back. So repeat it back to let them know that you heard what it is. And then they're like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. So this is what the challenge is. Yeah, that's what it is. And then you want to show empathy, or like that you understand. I totally understand. So you want to show empathy to them. It's like what they're going through is not an easy thing, and in all cases, it sucks going through certain things, and some things that perhaps, like, we're not perfect, and then other things that are outside of our control. But I mean, everybody wants to be understood, right? So then that's the third one, is I understand where you're coming from. And then the next is like, let them know you're going to take action. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this and this and this. And so, but most businesses stop there. But what we found was that there's one more step that you can do that changes them into a raving fan. And that is to, once you've done the thing, you follow up with them and you told them you did the thing and you did something else. So you went the extra mile. So you follow up and you go the extra mile. And by doing that, we found that advocacy went up significantly. And you turned a 1 star into a 6 star out of
Yeah.
5, right?
Yeah.
So they were
Yeah.
extremely happy because now they know they can trust you. Things happen in business. It's just, if something comes up, can you turn them into a raving fan? And if you do that, I mean, that's what great businesses are made out of.
I love that you said that, because and that is, stuff happens every day, and it's not what happens, it's how you handle it. And that's
Yeah.
all that matters. And really, because, and especially, you know, when you're dealing with big companies, they have so many contractors that are coming in, and again, a lot of the time it's just misunderstandings. But it's being, it's just dealing with it in the right way. It's not what happens; it's how you handle it. It's it,
Mm.
and you can really convert it into a good experience.
Well, especially in the home services business that you're in. And I'll just share, I speak with another really successful entrepreneur, and I asked him, well, like, what businesses for young entrepreneurs, or they're getting out of high school, like, what do you suggest they get into? And he said, one of the best businesses in today's market, he's like, get into any home services business. And if you take your personality and that commitment to excellence and customer service, and if you can train your sales reps to do that and be personable, because a lot of them are not. There's a lot of home services business, HVAC, plumbers, just, in general, just there's a reputation. I'm not saying everyone here. There's a reputation of not being like extra mile, like wow service. But if you can do that, he said that you can do exceptionally, you can become a multimillionaire in the home services business. And so that's what you're in. And it is clear to me why you're successful with that. And I just, for the listeners out there, even though you said earlier it's not a sexy business, when you look at the financials at the end of the year, you build a business like that, it gets very sexy, very, very quick, and you're helping people with clean air. So I love your mission as well with it.
I love how you say that too, because that is, I mean, what is a sexy business? And like there's very
Right.
few really like really sexy businesses out there, and I think that's defined by that's individual like preference and things like that.
Sure.
And I had someone say, so like you always dreamed of a duct cleaning business or an indoor air quality and duct cleaning business. And I said no. And it's not even that I'm necessarily so passionate about that. Like I am, but I'm also really passionate about growing a business, like providing great jobs and like high paying jobs. My technicians do well, they have families, and giving back to the community. I mentioned to you before the show that I'm part of the Rotary Club. And so like, we're doing all these great causes. So it's really cool to like serve the community that serves you, and give
Mm.
back and do those things. And we have the fun run coming up in Barrie, and so it's like I get to bring my kids out to this thing where I donate my time. We're fundraising, right, and it goes to all these different causes that we're supporting, and at the same time my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old get to do like the little kids run. I think it's like a 250-meter like there and back. They get to stay up a little bit past their bedtime and like do that, but it's like this. So it becomes like this family thing, and you get integrated with the community, and it's a different life experience, in my opinion. And I think it's a really like a good one.
Yeah. Right on. Well, we could keep chatting for, I'm sure we could speak for another 2 hours on how to grow a business. And uh, we want to stick to our time here. We're coming up on time. So I have 3 questions, so rapid fire questions, and we're going to wrap this up. You ready for them?
Sure.
Awesome. First one is, okay, so we had talked about Buy Back Your Time. Outside of Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, what's your favorite book that's made the biggest impact in your career?
Well, you mentioned one of them. The one that gave me the kick in the ass was the David Goggins "You Can't Hurt Me." That I read that book before I started renovating the houses and all that kind of stuff, and it's such a great book. But I do a lot of reading, and I listen to them a lot as I'm driving, like if I have a far drive and stuff like that. Um, and so I like David Goggins. That book is a big one for me. And one I'm reading right now is pretty cool on like sales strategy and stuff. Is Chris Voss, "Never Split the Difference" is a really good book too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Actually came from that book. When you're speaking with somebody, you want to be able to get it. Yeah, that's right. So that they feel understood. It's like tactical empathy. So it's a good one for sure. Definitely love that one. Very cool. Next question is the 3 words that people that know you best that they would describe you as.
Hard worker,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, intense in both a good and a bad way. I'm a pretty intense guy, and was going to say fun, but I'm not fun. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say,
Energetic.
I'd say you have a great personality, very likable is what I'm going to use for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that likability is something that when you meet somebody for the first time, there's a trust factor where it's like there's like an instant trust there. Not everybody has it, but I mean, you definitely have it, which would make you great for business development for the business there as well. So I think keep doing what you're doing there.
Can I change my word? I like it, but it
Yeah,
just came to me is another word would be real. I just give you the
real,
straight
very cool,
goods for, you know,
good.
and it gets me in trouble sometimes, but I just
Yeah,
say it as it is.
very cool. So we have intense, hard worker, and real.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and then I added one in there as well. So very cool. And then final question for you here, and we're going to wrap this up. So, what final advice would you have for the entrepreneurs out there listening, whether they're just starting or if they want to take their business to the next level?
If you're just starting, then start. Just do it. Like just start. And I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but just get the ball rolling. Start. Try something and figure it out from there. But a lot of people don't even start because they think they got to get it perfect, and it's not about being perfect. It's about having really good intentions. And like I said before, like your business just evolves. Like you come up with these great ideas. So start. And then for anyone trying to grow and scale their business is I think just try and have a learning mindset. Just continuous learning. I try and do a lot of networking, which is why I was super excited to do this podcast with you. You're really well known in the community, and I know I know where you started and all that kind of stuff, and you've done really well for yourself. And so I want to rub shoulders with people that are where I want to be.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Richard, this was it was a real pleasure for me to have this conversation with you. And for the listeners, they want to reach out and maybe you could say your serving area as well, and then the best way they can connect with you.
Certainly, yeah. So I own Modern PURAIR Barrie, and you can, if you Google us, you'll find all our information online there. Modern PURAIR Barrie, and we serve basically all of Simcoe Muskoka. So I basically run down from King City in the 400, which is kind of York, and then all the way up into Huntsville and everything in between. And so yeah, my name's Richard, and so reach out. I talk to people all day long, and I love it. And I answer questions, and we do so many different things. So if you ever have a question about air quality, I'm your man.
Good man. Well, Richard, thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Right on. Well, thanks for listening, guys. If you like the show, please share and subscribe to the channel. And if you're ready to start building long-term wealth, I want to invite you to come and partner with me on our next apartment acquisition in a top US market. Visit fulloutinvesting.com and let's grow together. And just remember, the fastest way to build wealth is to grow your business and invest in real estate. I love you guys.